This episode may contain language or discussions that may be offensive or triggering. Refer to the episode summary for details. Welcome to She.Confidential podcast. My name is Charlene Ketchum, and the holidays are upon us. And today we are so lucky. I am chatting with Dr. Delores James. She is an associate professor with the University of Florida. She's the founder of Keep It Tight Sisters, and she's the owner of Ben Chris Group, a publishing imprint. And she is going to talk to us about everything that we need to know so that we can get through these holidays without overdoing it, overindulging, and so that we can have balanced and guilt-free treats during, Christmas and the New Year's and everything, because this can be a really tough time of year for people who have certain health conditions that make it kind of tricky for them to navigate all of these gatherings. And just for those of us like me who love sweets and who loves the collard greens and who loves the ham and all this stuff for Thanksgiving. So Dr. James is going to give us all the tips that we need so that we can get through this holiday season without the extra 15 pounds or without all these sugar rushes. So thank you so much for being here to chat today.
Thank you for inviting me, and I hope that no one shoots the messenger. I hope that no one shoots the messenger. So I'll come with the message and I'll be honest, but we'll have a little bit of fun with this because I think that anytime we're talking about food and holiday eating, we also know that family and family drama sometimes play an important, part of our holidays. So we'll get there.
Yes, they do. So first, the big question is, what is your favorite holiday meal? Or if you're a sweets person, what's your favorite sweet?
Well, a lot of it depends on where I am. So if I am home in St. Thomas for Christmas, it's going to be very different than if I am in Florida for the holidays. And so if I'm in Florida, I do love sweet potato pie with Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream. And sometimes I just have to also indulge in pecan pie with a small sliver because it is so sweet, but it is also so good. And a Dutch apple pie doesn't hurt either. So Haagen-Dazs vanilla, just kind of keep it in the freezer because it will go with quite a few things.
So that reassures me because a lot of times we think that people who are dietitians or nutrition experts, that you all don't eat any of the sweets and that you're just, strawberries and, berries all the time.
Yeah, with no fat whipped cream, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I asked that question one because I'm genuinely I like now I know that we have a kinship because I also love sweet potato pie. And so I know like how cool I'm going to be with someone based on what their favorite holiday treat is. But then I also asked that question because a lot of times people's biggest struggle is they think they have to just be completely deprived. And during the holidays, that means they have to sit and eat salad and just fruit for dessert when that may not necessarily be the requirement. So before we
Right. And neither should it be. So, as a registered dietitian, we say that all foods can fit and real food for real people. So, when we say that, we also have to recognize that there's a difference between a treat and a habit. If you're eating it every day, it's no longer a treat, it's just something that you do. So, we recognize that the holidays present an opportunity for you to eat certain foods that are not normally as popular. And one of the things that I like to talk about food is that food plays so many different roles in our lives. So if you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food is going to come in the safety area. Food makes us feel safe, but food also brings us comfort. And we get into trouble, however, when we use food as a coping mechanism and as a way to comfort ourselves
Yeah.
repeatedly. But if
Mm.
you think about food, the first thing that happens when a baby is born is that a baby is put to the breast. And so you have that warm milk, or the baby's given a bottle. So so there is a deep rooted connection to food. So
Yeah.
part of that though is that, again, when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, some people self-medicate, and others medicate probably with alcohol or other type of drugs. And food is always accessible, and so people tend to have a love-hate relationship with food. They love the food, but they don't love the calories. And sometimes, if you have a an issue with food, like a disordered eating, then it's just even stressful, because some people will say once they start eating, they can't stop, or they don't know how to stop. So, but we have that love hate relationship with food. But if we are able to have a nourishing relationship with food, a healthy relationship with food, which is one of the things that we advocate in Keep It Tight Sisters, helping women to have a healthy relationship with food. And it is a relationship.
A very important
It's a
one.
very important. Sometimes we break up and then we get back together. We get back together.
Yeah.
Um, and food is always there. It doesn't talk back until you get on the scale. So I think that it's all about developing that healthy relationship with food, giving yourself a little bit of leeway during the holidays, understanding that losing weight should never be a goal during the holiday season. What you want to focus on is not gaining any weight during the holiday. Just even, even Stevens. And if for some reason you kind of go to that little dark place, you can come back again. I always tell my clients, my associates, every day is New Year's Day. Every day is a new opportunity to start. Don't wait until January 1st to get back on track. Every day is a new day for you to start, and to be gentle with yourself, to be kind with yourself. But food can never fill an empty heart.
Mm. You
Food
just
can
said so
never fill an
much
empty
there.
heart.
Yes. Yes. And that's, I think there's so, I have several follow up questions because you just said so much good stuff. Um, the first is, how do we distinguish between habits that are geared towards weight loss versus avoiding weight gain? Because I know for a lot of people during the holidays, if you've already, like, I can use myself for example, I still am in the middle of a weight loss plan. And so it's long term. It's not something I was planning that I'm structuring to do like over a matter of months. This is more of a long term plan that I'm working with a wellness coach. But even for me during the holiday season, we're not necessarily emphasizing that as much as just maintaining these habits that we've already put into place. And
Yes.
so for someone who's going into it and they haven't really started addressing whatever their fitness or wellness goals are, and they're thinking, okay, by the end of the year, because we also know a lot of people have these end of year goals. And if they're saying by the end of the year, I want to drop 20 pounds, so that means they're having to quote unquote diet over the holidays. That's going to be really difficult with all these temptations versus the person who's like, I just need to maintain through the
Mhm.
holidays. So like how do you incorporate those different goals in your day-to-day habits in terms of how you're eating?
Well, I like to talk about having realistic goals and having what we also consider to be SMART goals. So there's a difference between a goal and a desire, because you may desire to lose weight, but it may not really be a goal. It's something that you want to happen. And every goal has a plan, it has an action plan that must be executed, and executed successfully. So I would say that if you are in the middle of a weight loss journey during the holidays, you may want to put a pause on some of the things that you think you want to get done, and be realistic. And so rather than trying to lose weight during the holiday, it's maintaining where you are right now. And maintaining is a worthy goal because people do gain weight during the holidays. So I'm sure you're aware right now that all of the candy is out for Halloween. Whether you celebrate Halloween or not, you are getting those those little miniature candy and they're being advertised. So I would say from between now, we say till January, which is the eating season, but then we push it off a little bit because say, well, Valentine's is going to come up in February.
Mm-hmm.
So, so part of it is when we develop smart goals, we say, okay, what realistically should you aim for? And the thing that you may decide to aim for is to increase your physical activity during the holidays or to reduce your sugar intake during the holidays. But a lot of times while we're talking about food and sugar, for some people, they don't realize how many calories they also get from alcohol.
Yeah.
So figure out where you're getting those calories from and where you want to what you want to address. So I think it's okay to be at a plateau during the holidays because, again, when I do research, and one of the things that I state is that 72% of Americans are either overweight or obese. That's a lot. And about 37% are obese. Or, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that, are classified as obese.
Okay.
And the reason why I self corrected is that we want to define obesity as a medical condition or where your weight is rather than refer to that person as an obese person, someone who has obesity, someone whose weight has been classified as such, not the person themselves, because we don't tell a cancer patient you're cancerous. We say you have cancer. So you
Yeah.
have obesity, you have a eating disorder, you have a medical condition, and it is a medical condition. So again, it's the language because we say, I'm overweight, I'm fat, I'm obese, and we're trying to change the language because there's also stigma that goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a medical condition, and it's a medical condition that drives diabetes, that drives hypertension, that drives heart disease, and it also runs in our family.
Yeah.
Okay? So one of the things is separating you are not your weight. You are not what the scale says. And if you understand that, then you don't go through this up and down with this love hate, depending on what the scale says, then that's where my value comes.
Yeah.
And so, right now, even in our profession, I am talking about moving away from a weight centric model to a self care and wellness model where modifying eating behaviors is one of those aspects of that model for self care and self love. So, if you begin to put it into self care and self love, you realize that there are other elements that come in. We like to focus on the food, but something is driving that eating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very big proponent of journaling.
Yeah.
And so, one of the questions that I saw in my Facebook feed last year was, tell us one good thing that happened during COVID, because we're talking about all the stuff that happens and the deaths and the COVID weight gain and everything like that. And one of the things that I did, last year was I started my own publishing company. And I love to write. I was first published when I was 15. I publish as an academician. I have textbook. But Ben Chris Group, we do a lot of self-love and
Mm-hmm.
self-care guided journals. and things that help women on along the way. And so
Mhm.
sometimes people are intimidated by a blank journal. Oh, where do I start? It's like Snoopy. It was a, stormy day. But with a guided journals where you have prompts and where you have
Mhm.
affirmation, you can begin to let that be an important part of your weight management journey. And I do want to emphasize also that there are people who don't have any weight problem, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have healthy eating habits. So binge eating disorder is the most prevalent eating disorder in America. It used to be considered a syndrome, but it's alive and well, that compulsive overeating. And that happens to people in all weight categories. Now, one of the things that happens is that overeating is normalized in our society. You go
Mhm.
somewhere to eat, somebody invites you, here, have some seconds, have thirds,
Yeah.
take home some. And so there's that pressure. And
Mhm.
let us not forget that food is an important part of celebration.
Yeah.
Food is an important part of gathering. And as people who have an enslaved history, we understand the importance of food as something that brings us together.
Yes.
A lot of times when I'm on the national stage, I want to emphasize that people of color, Black people, African Americans, we do not every day sit and eat, the collard greens and the cornbread and all of those things.
No.
Maybe on the weekends, maybe for
Mhm.
family dinners,
Mhm.
but those things comfort us. They connect us to the ancestors. They connect us to the tradition. And I think that to think of any type of holiday gathering without food, you're going to be alone
Yeah.
because you cannot invite people over. It's almost like having a barbecue with nothing on the grill. Oh, no, I don't have a grill. We're just here for
Mhm.
the gathering. So I think that there are two things to consider. One, if you're the hostess, and two, if you're the guest. Those are very important for you to understand.
Yeah.
If you're a hostess, the goal is not to control your kingdom, but to also make sure that your guests have a good time.
Yes.
And that I recommend that you think about the fact that there's some people who are struggling, that there's some people with some health issues. So
Yeah.
go ahead and offer some other options available. I usually recommend that you'll have whatever your traditional meat is, maybe also offer a fish and a vegan
Mhm.
or vegetarian option because it's not just come and play with me, but I want you to feel appreciated. I'm inviting you to participate, and your comfort and your happiness is important to me. That's where hospitality comes in. It's not a matter, well, if they don't eat that, well, that's their business, and
Right.
whatever. Because people will bring their own food with them, right?
They
People
will.
will have next to that hot sauce in the purse,
They
some
sure
little
will.
container of something. So think about being a good hostess
Mhm.
and not necessarily about what you personally can eat or not eat. Offer some vegetable options. What are you having for appetizers? And offer a lot more, like a fruit tray, raw vegetable, tray. People can nibble on those. They'll give an option from just the nuts, which
Mhm.
can be healthy. However, when you add them all into the holiday meal, I would rather save my calories for sweet potato pie than the nuts. So, so
Yeah.
part of it is like you begin to plan to say, what am I saving my calories for? Okay.
Yeah.
What am I going to save it for?
Yes.
Okay. So plan and anticipate what might be there
Yeah.
And if you're a guest who's really struggling, understand that it's not the hostess's responsibility to plan everything around you and your needs. So when we were growing up, one of my brothers is a Rastafarian, and he was vegan. And so we've always included vegan meals as an option because we love our brother.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of friends who are vegan or vegetarian or who occasionally eat fish. So we make that effort because we want them to feel loved and included in
Yes.
our traditions. And so you can offer to bring, a fruit tray, a fruit platter. You can also offer to bring a vegetarian meal, understanding that some people may not touch it, but if
Right.
that's what you're comfortable with, they will talk about you. But rather than expecting to be accommodated at every step of the way, especially if it's not a family that you're familiar with, then you offer to bring, something that you and your family can enjoy along with the other offerings that's there.
Yes. Yeah. I like how you expanded what hospitality means because often, I don't know that we think about that a lot. We have our family traditions on what we cook, and we don't necessarily think because, people will bring what they want, or they'll come and they'll see that you don't have anything that's for them, and they just, they won't eat, and then they'll just leave. And then that makes you feel bad as a host, and then that makes that person feel uncomfortable. And so I like really thinking about expanding what hospitality means. And even it never hurts to ask.
Mhm.
I mean, we have people in my family who are, have high blood pressure and kidney issues, not so much of diabetes, but just really being mindful of maybe what people's different health considerations are, the cholesterol concerns and things. And so that's why I like your suggestions of having those varieties of vegetables and being mindful of how you prepare those vegetables. Because my family, we can take some vegetables and they not gonna be fit for a diabetic, anybody with cholesterol concerns. So you have to be mindful on how you prepare that stuff too, so that it actually is appropriate for people.
Right.
But just having
Mhm.
options.
And so I gave the example of what we do for my brother and the family and everything like that. But my best friend, we went to graduate school, we did our doctorate together, we stayed on faculty together, we got tenured together. Her children are my godchildren. She's from South Carolina, and
Mm,
her family. Hmm. So when they come to Florida for Thanksgiving, she's like, okay, you can't eat that. So she know, for example, that I don't eat pork. And so
mhm.
she started making, the greens with turkey necks, smoked.
Yes.
And then, when I became vegetarian, she was like, oh, I have vegetarian greens. She went out of her way to do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. She went out of her
Mhm.
way. And so part of that, again, in terms of what does hospitality mean? And I will tell you that during the holidays, if I'm here, and I'll give Thanksgiving, even though we're celebrating, this is a Christmas episode, that
Mhm.
I stay in Florida for Thanksgiving. It's just too much to travel to
Mhm.
the islands. And I
Yes.
have about three families that I do Thanksgiving with. One starts at 1 p.m. One is about 4-ish. And then for my best friend, I do dessert with her family. And I do dessert because we also play board games, and she's closer to my house. So I kind of know what I'm doing, and I'm going for the fellowship. But I
Yes.
also know, depending on which family that I just decided I'll do dessert with this house, so I don't need
Mhm.
dessert at that other house, right?
Right.
So they may pack me up something, but I like to have a nice cup of tea and
Mhm.
pie and all of this other stuff while we play, board games and those type of things. So anticipate and
Mm.
plan ahead and think about that. And if you're going to have figure out which pie am I going to have? Focus on portion control. So if there's sweet potato pie and pecan pie and they're good, then I will say, okay, I'll take a little bit of both. But that morning, I would have already walked maybe 2, 3 miles and done some other things so that I
Mhm.
could enjoy my meal without being guilty or
Yeah.
feeling guilty. And I
Yeah.
think that it, enjoy the meal. Let those taste buds sing. Eat slowly. Leftovers will be there. Leftovers will be there. Focus
Yes.
on eating slowly. A hostess, you can also have smaller plates. They will talk about you. Did you see the size of the plate that
Yeah.
Charlene gave us? Man,
Mhm.
whatever. And you're like, well, this isn't a sizzler.
Yeah.
But part of that, you can make your own food pyramid, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but there are things that you can do. You can have the smaller plates, the smaller cups, but
Yes.
or you can use them for yourself because I think there's something about trying to manipulate people to eat a certain way. If you're eating healthy, focus on yourself, focus on what you can control rather than trying to orchestrate people's lives and make them miserable.
Yes.
Gather and celebrate.
Yes. And don't make comments about people's bodies. I think,
Right,
or what's on their
right,
plate,
right.
that, yes.
Because it opens up the conversation now. Because if you're going to say, isn't that your third piece of pie?
Mm.
I may feel a need to respond another way that has nothing to do with food, but other areas of your life. So part of that is, why am I here? Am I adding to the celebratory mood? Or, I keep telling people, rebuking and criticizing is not a spiritual gift. So yeah. Are you here to build and encourage someone and just go ahead and ignore and the time for gathering and celebration? That person knows that that's their third plate.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very aware. Their pants are getting tight. They know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or unfortunately, yoga pants and spandex has
So,
has prevented many of us from knowing when things get tight,
hey,
right?
yes,
Because before,
we,
right? Yoga pants and spandex,
they do.
contributed to that part of the conversation where we don't usually have that cutoff.
Yeah.
So wear jeans because it
Yeah.
will, zip up jeans, not
Yeah.
jeggings.
That'll stop you. A friend of mine, we were talking about that because she said, I eat a lot more because we changed the way we dress.
Hmm.
It's so more common for you to just wear, leisure clothes all the time. Whereas people used to not, go do errands or go meet up with people for meals in yoga pants, but they do. And it used to be our joke. I don't eat crab legs, but a lot of my friends love crab legs, and we would go to the buffet where they'd have all you can eat crab legs. Now, I didn't eat the crab legs, but I ate a lot of other things. So we would all say, dress loose, so that you can, and we
All
would
you
be
can
there
eat.
for
Yeah.
hours, hours. We would go up, get the first plate, talk, and let it marinate a little bit, then go up and get some more. And our clothes could accommodate that because we were wearing stretchy clothes. And so that's a good tip.
And
Wear
thank you for bringing
jeans.
that part up. Dress in such a way that if you eat too much, you will be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You will be
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And sometimes there can be a little bit of a, accountability person, someone who could give you a little bit of a nudge. But again,
Yeah.
we underestimate how many calories are coming from alcohol because there are some households where the wine is flowing,
Yeah.
the liquor is flowing, the
Mhm.
beer is flowing, especially if there's going to be a game later. So
Yeah.
sometimes you may not be filling up on the sugar, or you may have a woman who's filling up on the sugar and the brother's filling up on the liquor or the
Yeah.
alcohol. Not to say that women don't drink,
Yeah.
but again, it's one serving per day. That's the guideline. That's the guideline. So I'm not monitoring people's alcohol. I don't serve alcohol at any of my gatherings because I don't drink and I don't want people to behave a certain way, so I don't serve it. But if I go somewhere where it's being served, a lot of times I know that people ask me about the sugar or about how many cheeses are in that mac and cheese, and don't think about how many calories is in that glass of wine and how many
Mhm.
glass of wine you've had.
Yeah. I know I didn't, not until I had my first, probably, no, it may have been my wellness coach or a nutritionist when I actually started thinking about, because I don't drink, so it's rare that I have a soda. And so I would say, oh, I don't drink my calories. But then I was asked, okay, if you have wine, what about the wine? And are you having a true serving size? Because I just pour. I know I give myself more than what they give me at the restaurant. And so that's the other thing, being mindful. A lot of people underestimate how much they're consuming because we're
Right.
having more than one serving.
Of course. And I'll throw this in there. With a lot of people not going out for church services because of COVID and all this other stuff. And then after a couple of months, churches figure out that, hey, we could do communion. You have your own emblems and things like that. And we
Hmm.
were joking, man, you should see my communion glass. Now that I'm no single full of me. So people who are doing communion at home online, they can tell you that their
With no
communion
entire
glass,
glass.
their communion, or heck, I opened a bottle. So let's keep going. So we are aware of that.
Yeah.
We're aware of that. And if you remember, there was a time when on ABC on Thursday night when we talk about Shondaland
Yes.
and all of that, and
Yes.
you
The big
went on
glass.
Twitter or people were texting about getting the red wine because it's Thursday night.
Yes.
And it's Thursday night. And so we laugh, and that was a cultural event.
Hmm.
But again, what's a serving? What's a serving? So for some people, it's not their calories coming from the sugar, but also as the alcohol calories. And there's a difference between a portion and a serving. I mentioned that in one of my posts on keepittightsisters.com. There's a difference between a portion is what you eat, a serving is what is recommended and what's listed on the label.
And those can be game changers because I'll tell you, years ago, I did Weight Watchers, and I'm just mentioning it. It's not like an endorsement or anything, but I did Weight Watchers years ago, and it was helpful for me because it made me, for the first time, read labels and be mindful. And back then, I used to eat the ramen noodles, which I don't fool with those in any way, shape, or form now because I never knew what was in them and the servings. And so one of those little packets is actually two servings. I used to make two packets. And then the sodium, I think one packet exceeds the amount of recommended sodium per day. And I was
Mhm.
making two packets and probably I think I used like one and a half of the little seasoning that came in it. But still, that was like almost a week's worth of sodium. And I didn't know that until I did Weight Watchers and started reading the labels and understanding just because you've got this one package, it doesn't mean that that's one that's designed
Serving.
for one person to consume at that time. And that was an eye opener for me.
Yeah, the portion control is a big thing. So, for example, if you are going, let's say the mashed potato,
Hmm.
you can have one serving as opposed to two. Or again, the sweet potato pie and the Haagen-Dazs ice cream, or whatever that with the vanilla, or the Breyers with the vanilla flecks,
Yes.
one scoop.
Yeah.
But you do that scoop, and if you're serving and somebody's looking at you like, hey. Keep going, keep going. So part of that is, if we say, if I focus on the serving, and while we're talking about the sugar, let us not forget the sodium, as you've mentioned, because 2,400 milligrams of sodium is the max for the day.
Hmm.
If you're African American, the recommendation is 1,500. For African Americans and the elderly, we are salt sensitive in terms of how our body processes salt. So while we may look and say, oh, the recommendation is 2,400, but if you're African Americans, we're telling you probably closer to 1,500 for you, because as a group, we are very salt sensitive.
Yeah.
So that is something. So when you're looking at the label, what are you looking for? And I say you look for serving size, sodium content, sugar, fiber, and then, of course, depending on what it is, for calories. So for you, when you talked about the ramen noodles, let me talk about my weakness is ice cream. Well, a pint of ice cream is actually 4 servings. Let that sit a little bit. It's 4 servings. Now, you kind of think, okay, you take it out, leave it on the countertop so it kind of melts down a little bit. Or we have been guilty of putting it in the microwave to kind of soften it up a little bit, and get a spoon. And that's mine. That's my chunky monkey. Not endorsing. That's
My mother loves that.
okay. So what I'm saying is, we think because a pint is is small compared to the quart, or the half gallon, it's 4 servings.
Yeah.
So if we focus on serving size and the amount, and using smaller plates, eating slowly, having some water, before, during, and after,
Mm-hmm.
and saving some leftovers for the next day, and also just kind of focus on family time.
Yeah.
One of the things that has, come out also during COVID is that we're really not doing the holiday parties, the office parties, like, because those office parties, if you did not get a raise that year, a lot of people were determined. They were going to be drinking and eating their raise from the time they walked in that door.
Sure did. It's so
So,
funny. I've heard people say that, like, hey, they're not paying us. We're gonna take it out in the liquor. And yeah.
right. And so I even, I have a blog post just about the holiday party, the office party. So not last year and this year, not a big factor. And companies may go back to some modified version of that, but I don't see the office parties at Christmas time being the way they were in years before COVID. But you added that plus your own family gathering, the office parties just really added on, because you may have your office party, your husband's office party,
And a team
and all of this. Exactly, the kids' Christmas pageant and the cookies and punch afterward and all of those other things. That's important.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there have been in years past, definitely pre-COVID, but where I've said and others have said, we're going to just throw the whole month away. Like from the week before Thanksgiving through New Year's, we're just whatever, because it's just going to be what it's going to be. Because you'd had all those events back to back, and it was all revolving around food. And then when I really realized I don't have to feel like I can't go to these events and have some of the things I like, but really just planning. And for me, working with professionals to kind of help give me those insights and figure out what my weaknesses were. Because as you've mentioned, everyone has their different thing. For some people, it'll be, you might need to monitor how much alcohol you're consuming, or if you're into sweets, because some people don't do sweets, you don't have to worry about that, but you may need to worry about, how much of the food, your portion sizes, and all those different things. And so really just being aware that this is my super heavy gathering season.
Mm-hmm.
What's my game plan? So if I'm
What's
going to
the
go
game
to
plan?
3 of these parties, can I get up and take a walk in the morning? Can I bump up that water? Because you also mentioned the water, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge technique that goes underutilized, because if you're drinking water, you will consume less. And it actually helps with the cravings. It helps me definitely with the sweets. And when I've got that buffet of different cakes and pies and things, if I drink some water, a full glass of water, you don't have room. It's going to take up space. So you're not going to be
Right.
able to do that.
And I will tell you that sometimes, depending on the culture, we do get a lot of our calories and sugar from beverages. So if you're from a Caribbean culture, you're going to have your ginger beer, you're going to have your sorrel, you're going to have your mabi, and those are sweetened, and you have those at the holiday time.
Okay.
So rather than water, it's like, what do you want? Ginger beer, you want sorrel, you want lemonade, you want,
Mm-hmm.
so, and there's certain beverages that come out during the holidays.
Yeah.
And so part of that is I, and you have to do the holiday season. It's not just like for one day.
Yeah.
And if you're visiting, or as we say, if you're going house to house,
Yeah.
then you're going to be offered,
Mm-hmm.
you know, black cake, you're going to be offered tarts, and you're going to be offered a sugary beverage that tastes really, really good. So part of that is for me, whew, it's hard. It's hard because or the soursop drink or the tamarind drink, and I know that's
Mm-hmm.
also for the Hispanic culture. When I
Mm-hmm.
go to the Cuban restaurants or the Venezuelan restaurants or the Peruvian restaurant, they have a beverage list
Yeah.
that you don't normally see.
Yeah.
And oh my, it's those tropical fruit drinks
Yeah.
that really sometimes do us in. So part of it is we're getting sugar from other places. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're going to have your pie, it's hard, but have some water, have some water and enjoy the pie.
Yes.
And just kind of figure it out, because once you're intentional, once you're conscious, you can begin to make some better choices. But part of it is pick one thing that you're going to focus on. If you're focusing on the sugar or the alcohol or just the portion control,
Yeah.
and say, let's go for a morning walk, or let's go for an
Mm-hmm.
afternoon walk, or, or something like that. One of our New Year's tradition for my sister and I is that we go hiking on New Year's Day. We go hiking. We take the ferry over to St. John, and we like to hike the national park. That's just something that we've done in terms of our girls' trip, and it certainly does not erase everything that we
Yeah.
did. But the walking and talking, let us not
Yes.
underestimate
Yeah.
the that type of gathering while we're
Mm-hmm.
getting some activity, while you're able to check in with friends and family that you haven't seen in a while. And I think that we can try, the weather permitting, a lot of it depends on where you live, to have something that has more physical activity, no, in there.
Yeah. You have so many great suggestions and tips so that people can really enjoy food without guilt, but also just in a really consistent way that's going to be healthy for them and not derail whatever their goals, their wellness goals are. And so everyone needs to
Mhm.
be able to talk to a Dr. James. So before we wrap up, I want to talk about, before we talk about the services that you offer, I want to talk about how someone finds a nutritionist or dietitian, and what are the differences between, those, because a lot of people think they're the same type,
Mhm.
the same credentials, and they're different. So if you could talk a little bit about the differences between a dietitian and nutritionist, and for people who are trying to just improve their nutrition habits, where should they go? How do they find
So,
someone?
right. So I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. Before we were registered dietitian. So you'll see some people would have still used the RD credential, but the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is our accreditation body, and that's the RDN. And the RDN means that I have gone through the rigorous education at an accredited university. I have done internships in clinical supervision, and I have successfully passed and maintained every year. We have a 5-year cycle. Also in the state of Florida, I'm an LDN. I'm licensed to practice. So that those are legal recognition. The
Mhm.
word some if someone is saying they're a nutritionist rather than a registered dietitian, that kind of clues you in to their qualification. So you may have somebody who has a PhD in nutrition who's not a registered dietitian. It means then that they really focus more on nutrition science, on the biochemistry of nutrition, than actually the medical nutrition therapy, and using nutrition and dietetics as a way to prevent and treat diseases and health conditions. So look
Okay.
for an RDN. When you go to get a smoothie and they're offering the protein and you're getting all of this advice, they're telling you, oh yeah, this is going to help
Hmm.
rehydrate you or help you burn off some other fats or whatever. um, you know, Someone who's a foodie or just say they're a nutrition lover or all of those things, it doesn't mean that person may not be well read. But I think that not only is misinformation out there, but where are you getting your information? I think that is also, again, kind of bringing COVID into this. Where are you getting your information about screening, testing, and vaccines? Where are you getting that information? Because information is freely available online, but what is that source? So if you don't have access to a registered dietitian in your area, because sometimes you have to be referred, but you can also pay out of pocket. If you are in a weight management program, sometimes your health insurance will send you to a registered dietitian, or you can ask your physician for a referral. But if you're going and getting information, make sure online that it's coming from a credible website, and that person should also list their credentials online. A lot of people have very good information, but once you begin to get into treatment, diagnosis, and therapy, then those are some of the red flags. And some states don't regulate, but when you begin
Yeah.
to even think about things like supplements and treating chronic diseases like kidney disease, diabetes, and things like that, you want to make sure that you have someone who is trained and understand how to use medical nutrition therapy. We understand pharmacology. We also understand the medical system, how your body works, and more importantly, we can tailor something based on your needs, your lifestyle. There isn't a one size fits all, but if you are getting your information primarily from Dr. Google, then have Dr. Google direct you to sites um, that are owned or maintained by credentialed professionals.
Yes. And is there a directory where people can find culturally competent dietitians? Like if I'm seeking an African American or Black dietitian, because for me it's very important to collaborate with someone who understands my culture and can address some of those things and kind of help me figure out substitutions and things that will still not deviate too much from my what I'm used to and what I kind of want sometimes. So is there a place that people can go to find specifically to search for
Well,
African American or Black.
you make an excellent point because representation matters,
Mm-hmm.
and people want to feel that that health professional can identify or at least know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times that is not necessarily indicated. So if you go to the Florida Department of Health and go to the licensed professional, it may not necessarily indicate the ethnicity of that person.
Yeah.
But I will assure you that the Dietetic Association is working and provides training in cultural competence. But it's also important for us to recognize that there's book knowledge and then there's lived experience. Because I would also say somebody who's Hispanic or Asian. So you need to be able to understand the religious differences, the
Yes.
foods that would be appropriate. And I would say that if you find a registered dietitian nutritionist, that person has some training in cultural competence and can
Yeah.
help you find that information.
Okay.
A lot of it depends on where you are.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I talk about the association being very conscious, the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo, which is our big annual conference, I am a panelist where I'm talking about cultural competence, body image, and obesity, and looking within the different cultures about body appreciation. There are a lot of people who love their size and or who've made peace with their body. So how do we hold space where we get away again from a weight-centric model to a self-care and wellness model,
Mm-hmm.
where there's not medical fat shaming? That's a different topic.
Mm-hmm.
And where we can help people to understand this is your body, this is what your body does. How do you love your body, love yourself for where you are? If you want to improve, that's fine. We can help you on that journey. We can help to coach you there. But part of that is you have to understand that being 50 pounds lighter does not mean you love yourself anymore. You have to
Mm-hmm.
begin to love yourself where you are and not to define yourself by how you look, what you wear, what you drive, what the scale says. And that's the reason, again, when I said the guided journals that I write and I produce, those are available on Amazon. And I'm always coming out with one for a new quarter. The first one, it's my time. Then I also brought it out in Spanish, es mi turno. And then I have it's our time. So part of that is begin your self love journey. I don't want to call it necessarily your weight loss journey because if you begin to address the root cause of your overeating or your anger or your stress,
Mm-hmm.
you begin to be at peace with food and peace with your body. And you find other ways to satisfy those needs because we have to stop lying to ourselves. If you have a problem, say, I have a problem. Get an accountability partner, a buddy. Begin to understand that also there's a spiritual aspect to our health. There's a spiritual aspect. And there are times when our body, minds, and soul are just so disconnected. And if we recognize where we are, then we can also help you to be on that path. So I'm very holistic and I'm very pleased to be training the new generation of health professionals. I'm also a health educator as well as a registered dietitian nutritionist. And so you can rest assured that I've been doing this for over 20 years, that those students who come through my hands and my heart are being trained in cultural competence. They're being trained to see you and to hear you and to help you on your journey. You have to determine the path that you want. You have to be prepared to do the hard work, but the resources are there and they are competent professionals who can help to be part of that journey with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for, I didn't realize that you did so much on the health education side of it.
Yes.
That is excellent.
Dual professions, dual professions. Yes, the health education helps me to shape the message, help it to look at the theory behind what we do, how to design, implement, evaluate the effectiveness, how to engage communities, because it's not just individuals. I do research on the community and the people within the community and form those types of partnerships. And I really do want to thank you for reaching out to me, that we follow each other on social media. And I know for those people who don't want to read a blog, as I mentioned to you previously, we just started our Kibitai Sisters YouTube channel where we're bringing that in for the video, and you can get those type of information up and running. I believe in affirming women, especially Black women, women of color, sisters across the aisle, to understand that we have to begin to do some soul work. And as we do that soul work, the food work will fall into place.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
You're
you. You
welcome.
are phenomenal. Thank you so much. And the website again where people can access your blog articles.
KibiTightSisters.com. We're also on
Okay.
Instagram. We're using Pinterest as a self care clearinghouse on about 17 different boards just on women's health and wellness. There's something for everything that you can think about. And as I mentioned, also we just got our YouTube channel up and running. And so please visit our different sites and to subscribe, like, and share.
Yes. And your journal. And what is in the
Yes,
name of the
all
journal?
they're available on Amazon. If you look under Delores James, it's my time and it's our time, which is a call and response journal where we use women voices from different area, Black women's voices. You know, the call and response when you're in church and the pastor
Yes.
says this and then the amen. So women are calling each other to come up and to come higher,
Mhm.
and you respond to that because you need a sister circle.
Yes.
You need a sister circle. Life is too hard to do it alone, and you don't need to do it alone. And so it's our time, it's my time, available on Amazon. And I'm coming out with the holiday with prayers, short prayers, and using that spiritual journey for weight management.
Wonderful. Yes. I love
Yes.
it. I love it. Yes. I will have the links for all of your social media, your website, and the Amazon link in the description box for those who are listening to the podcast and for those who are watching on YouTube and on the episode page on sheconfidential.com. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think that it's so important what you and I are doing right now in terms of partnership. I think sometimes you just take a risk to DM someone, and I want to say that don't focus on competition, focus on collaboration and how we can help to take each other higher. And it's doesn't have to be what do I get out of this. If I can do
Mhm.
something to help push you forward, to help lift you forward. And I think that as we come out of COVID, we need to find other ways for Black women to support each other. And when I say Black women, when Black women heal, we're the caretakers. We are the gatekeepers to the family and the home. We take care of the children. We take care of the elderly. We take care of the men. They are alive because we choose to keep them alive. And once the Black women heal, the Black community will also heal. And so that's the reason why I focus on the women, because they're the gateway. Everything trickles down from mama's hand and from grandma's hand. So when we target the Black women, the Black community will heal because we lift each other up. And so I just hope that as we come out of COVID, it takes us to another space where we can really focus on not just women empowerment, but community empowerment, especially in an online space. Like I do research on online health communities. How can we in online space collaborate with someone in Missouri,
Yes.
and to be able to take each other higher? So let us focus on how we can support and collaborate and not focus on competing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I'm so thankful. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
And you have a great holiday.
Yes. Thank you. You all have been
Okay.
listening, watching She Confidential. Until next time.